They said the old mountain log house was worthless, a rotting pile of timber that should have been torn down decades ago. But when a struggling waitress opened its hidden vault, she found $265 million in stolen masterpieces, lost gold, and a secret that powerful men had killed to keep buried for over 70 years. Before we dive into this story, make sure to smash subscribe, because tomorrow we have an extra special story for you that will blow your mind. The fluorescent lights of Miller's diner buzzed overhead like dying wasps as Maya Torres wiped down the same cracked vinyl booth for the third time that hour. Her feet ached in shoes held together with duct tape and prayer. The clock on the wall read 11:45, 15 more minutes until her shift ended. Then she'd drive across town to the truck stop where her second shift started at 1 in the morning. Sleep was something other people did. Maya just survived. She was 24 years old, but felt twice that. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail that hadn't been washed in 3 days. Her uniform smelled like fryer grease and broken dreams. Tips had been terrible all week. The rent was due in 4 days, and she was still $200 short. Her younger sister Emma, just 16, was waiting at home in their cramped apartment doing homework by the light of a lamp they'd bought at a yard sale. Maya carried that weight like stones in her pockets. Every step, every breath, every decision was calculated around one simple question: how do we make it to next month? Their parents had died in a car accident when Maya was 19 and Emma was 11. No insurance, no savings, just 2 girls and a stack of hospital bills that could have paid for a house. Maya had dropped out of community college 3 credits shy of her associate degree. She'd taken the first jobs she could find and never looked back. 5 years later, she was still running, still exhausted, still hoping that someday things might get easier. They never did. The diner was nearly empty tonight. Just old Charlie in the corner booth nursing his 3rd cup of decaf, and a truck driver at the counter who'd ordered eggs and hash browns and barely touched either. Maya had learned to read people in this job. The ones who came in to eat, and the ones who came in to not be alone. Most nights, she fell into the second category herself. She glanced at the schedule taped to the wall behind the register. 72 hours this week between both jobs. Her body was a collection of aches she'd stopped noticing. Her hands were rough and cracked from dish soap and cleaning chemicals. She'd found her first grey hair last month and laughed until she cried. This wasn't the life she'd imagined at 19, but it was the life she had, and she'd learned to carry it without complaint because complaining never paid the electric bill. "Maya, you got a letter," called out Dennis, the night cook, a man with tattoos covering both arms and a heart softer than he'd ever admit. He tossed an envelope across the counter. It landed beside the ketchup bottles she was refilling. She picked it up, frowning. The return address was from a law office 3 towns over, Whitmore and Associates, attorneys at law. Her stomach dropped. Legal letters never brought good news. Had she missed a payment somewhere? Was Emma in trouble at school? Had they finally tracked down some old medical debt she'd thought was buried? She tore it open right there, fingers trembling slightly. "Dear Miss Torres," it began in formal typeface that made her eyes hurt. "We are writing to inform you that your great-aunt, Eleanor Torres, passed away on the 16th of October. As per her last will and testament, you have been named the sole beneficiary of her estate, specifically a property located at 4273 Old Mountain Ridge Road. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience to arrange transfer of the deed." Maya read it twice, then a 3rd time. Eleanor Torres. She barely remembered the woman, a distant relative she'd met maybe twice in her entire life, both times at family reunions when she was too young to care. She remembered a tall, thin woman with silver hair pulled back tight, sharp eyes that seemed to see everything, and a way of looking at people like she could see straight through them. She'd lived alone somewhere in the mountains. That was all Maya knew. Her mother had mentioned Eleanor occasionally, always with a strange tone in her voice, like she didn't quite know what to make of her aunt. And now she was dead. And apparently, she'd left Maya a house. "Everything okay?" Dennis asked, flipping a burger on the grill. Maya folded the letter carefully and tucked it into her apron pocket. "Yeah," she said quietly. "Just some family stuff." But her mind was racing. A house, property, even if it was worthless, even if it was falling apart, it was something. Something real. Something she could touch, and maybe, just maybe, turn into the break they desperately needed. 2 days later, Maya sat in a cramped office that smelled like old coffee and cheaper cologne. The lawyer, a balding man named Richard Whitmore, shuffled papers across a desk scarred with decades of use. He looked at Maya over wire-rimmed glasses with something close to pity, the kind of look she'd gotten used to over the years. The look that said, "This poor girl, struggling so hard." "I'll be honest with you, Miss Torres," he said, sliding a folder toward her. "The property isn't worth much. Your great-aunt lived very simply. The house is old, built sometime in the late 1800s from what we can tell. It's remote, no running water, no electricity, and the structure itself is in severe disrepair. We've had it appraised, and frankly, the land isn't worth more than $5,000. Maybe less." Maya stared at the folder. $5,000. That was more money than she'd seen in one place in years. That could cover rent for months. That could buy Emma new shoes that didn't have holes in the soles. That could maybe, finally, let Maya breathe for a minute. "So I can sell it?" she asked, trying to keep the desperation out of her voice. Whitmore grimaced, adjusting his glasses. "You can try, but I should warn you, there's been no interest. The property's been on the market before. Your great-aunt tried to sell it 3 times over the past 20 years. No buyers. Too remote. Too run down. The access road is barely passable, and frankly, most folks around here think the place is cursed." Maya blinked. "Cursed?" He waved a hand dismissively, like he was embarrassed to even say it. "Small-town nonsense. You know how people talk. They say strange things happened up there. Lights in the woods at night. Sounds nobody could explain. Your great-aunt never let anyone inside, not in 40 years. Kept completely to herself. Wouldn't accept visitors, wouldn't hire help. Nothing. People started making up stories. That's what people do when they don't understand something." "Did you know her?" Maya asked. Whitmore shook his head. "Never met her. She handled everything through mail. Sent checks for property taxes every year, always on time. Never missed a payment in 49 years. When she stopped responding to our letters last month, we sent someone to check. That's how we found her. Passed peacefully in her sleep from what the coroner could tell." Maya felt a strange pang of sadness for this woman she barely knew, dying alone in a house in the mountains. No one there. No one who cared. "Did she have any other family?" Maya asked. "You're it," Whitmore said. "Your mother was her only niece. After your mother passed, you and your sister were the closest living relatives. For some reason, Eleanor specifically requested in her will that the property go to you, not Emma. Just you." That struck Maya as odd. Why specify? Why not just leave it to both of them? "Right," Maya said slowly. She opened the folder. Inside were photos of a dilapidated log house surrounded by towering pines and thick underbrush. Moss covered the roof like a blanket. The windows were dark and empty, some cracked, some missing entirely. The whole structure leaned slightly to one side like a drunk man trying to stay upright. It looked like something out of a horror movie, the kind of place teenagers would dare each other to enter. But it was hers. "What do I need to do?" she asked. Whitmore slid a pen across the desk. "Sign here, here, and here. The deed transfers to you immediately. There's no mortgage, no liens, no complications. It's yours free and clear. Keys are in the envelope. There are two, actually. One for the front door, and one we found in her personal effects. No idea what the second one is for. Maya signed without hesitation. Free and clear. Those words felt like magic, like something from a fairy tale she'd stopped believing in years ago. That night, she told Emma about the house. They sat on the lumpy couch in their tiny living room, the television playing some reality show neither of them was really watching. Emma had her knees pulled up to her chest, wearing an oversized sweatshirt Maya had bought her from Goodwill 3 months ago. It was getting too small already. Kids grow fast when you're not looking. A house? Emma's eyes went wide. Like an actual house? That we own? Apparently, Maya said. It's way up in the mountains. The lawyer says it's pretty rough. No power, no water. Basically a shack. Emma's excitement dimmed slightly. Oh. But, Maya continued, reaching over to tuck a strand of hair behind her sister's ear. If I can sell it, that's money. Real money. Enough to get us ahead for once. Maybe enough to get you that laptop for school you've been wanting. Emma's face brightened again. Really? Maybe. I need to see it first. Take some pictures. Figure out what we're working with. Emma leaned against her sister's shoulder, something she'd done since she was little. When are you going to see it? This weekend. I got Saturday off from both jobs. Miracle of miracles. I'll drive up, take some pictures, see what we're working with. Emma was quiet for a moment, then asked, Can I come? Maya kissed the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her cheap shampoo. Not this time, baby. I don't know what I'm walking into. Could be dangerous. Floors might be rotted through, could be animals living there, who knows. But if it's safe, I'll take you next time. Promise. Saturday morning arrived cold and grey, the kind of October day that promised winter was coming whether you were ready or not. Maya loaded a backpack with a flashlight, bottled water, granola bars, and her phone charger. She'd printed out directions from the lawyer's office. No GPS signal up in the mountains, Whitmore had warned. You'll need to follow the old roads. Take a map. People get lost up there. She'd left Emma with their neighbor Mrs. Chen, a kind woman who sometimes watched her when Maya worked late. Emma had hugged her tight at the door. Be careful, Emma had whispered. Always am, Maya had replied, though they both knew it was a lie. Careful was a luxury people like them couldn't always afford. The drive took almost 2 hours. She left the highway and wound through smaller roads, past farms and forgotten towns that looked like time had stopped sometime in the 1970s. Rusted tractors sat in fields like monuments to better days, houses with sagging porches and empty windows, gas stations that had been closed so long the pumps had become historical artifacts. The pavement gave way to gravel, then to dirt. Trees pressed in on both sides, tall pines that blocked out most of the sunlight and made the day feel later than it was. Her little Honda Civic rattled over potholes and exposed roots. Finally, after what felt like forever, she found the turnoff. A rusted mailbox marked 4273 hung crooked on a post that looked ready to fall over. The driveway was barely visible, overgrown with weeds and saplings that scraped the sides of her car. Maya put her old Honda Civic into low gear and crept forward. Branches scraped the sides of the car with sounds that made her wince. The road climbed steeply, twisting around boulders and fallen logs. More than once, she thought about turning back. This was insane. Nobody lived this far from civilization by accident. Then the trees opened up. The house sat in a clearing at the top of the ridge. It was bigger than she'd expected from the photos, much bigger. 2 stories of dark, weathered logs, stacked tight, with a stone chimney rising from the center like a spine. The roof sagged in places, and several windows were cracked or missing entirely. Vines crept up one side of the structure. The whole place had an air of abandonment, of secrets kept too long. But something about it felt solid, permanent, like it had grown from the mountain itself and would be here long after everything else had turned to dust. Maya parked and stepped out. The silence hit her first. No cars, no planes, no distant hum of civilization. Just wind in the trees and the occasional bird call. The air smelled like pine needles and earth and something else, something old and patient. She walked toward the house slowly, boots crunching on fallen leaves and broken branches. Up close, the decay was more obvious. The porch steps were rotted through in places, boards missing like teeth in an old mouth. The front door hung slightly crooked on its hinges. Paint had long since peeled away, leaving bare wood exposed to decades of weather. But then she noticed something strange. The lock on the front door was new. Not just new, pristine. A heavy brass deadbolt that gleamed even in the dim light filtering through the trees. It looked completely out of place on the ancient door, like someone had installed it yesterday. Maya pulled the key from her pocket. The metal was warm from her hand. She slid it into the lock, half expecting it not to fit. It turned smoothly, like it had been oiled yesterday. The door swung inward with a low creak that echoed across the empty clearing. Inside, the air was cool and dry, not musty like she'd expected. Dust covered everything in a thick blanket, but there were no cobwebs, no signs of animals or rot. Just silence and shadows and the feeling of walking into a place that had been waiting. She stepped inside carefully, testing each floorboard before putting her full weight down. The main room was large, maybe 30 feet across, with exposed log walls and a massive stone fireplace that took up most of one wall. Furniture sat beneath white sheets like sleeping ghosts. A kitchen area occupied one corner with an old wood-burning stove and a hand-pump sink. Everything was old, but strangely well preserved, like someone had sealed the place up and walked away expecting to return. Maya pulled out her flashlight and swept the beam across the walls. That's when she noticed the construction. The logs weren't just stacked. They were joined with complex interlocking notches, each one fitted so precisely there were barely any gaps. This wasn't rough frontier building. This was craftsmanship. Expensive, deliberate craftsmanship. The kind of work that took time and skill and money. Why would someone build something this solid in the middle of nowhere? She moved through the house slowly, exploring each room. Upstairs, she found 2 bedrooms, both empty except for bed frames and dressers covered in dust. In one room, she found a small bookshelf with a few old volumes. She picked one up carefully. The pages were yellowed but intact. Poetry by someone named Rilke. Another was a book on art history, its spine cracked from years of reading. The windows looked out over miles of forest, ridge after ridge, fading into blue distance. She could see why someone might choose this place. The isolation was absolute. You could disappear here and never be found. Back downstairs, she noticed something else odd. The house felt smaller inside than it should. She'd walked the perimeter outside. The footprint was larger than what she was seeing. There was space unaccounted for. Maya stood in the main room and turned slowly, trying to figure out the discrepancy. She paced from wall to wall, counting steps. Then she did it again, outside, comparing. She was right. There were at least 10 feet missing somewhere. She came back inside and examined the walls more carefully. That's when she saw it. Behind the wood-burning stove, the wall didn't quite match. The logs were slightly different in color, the spacing just a fraction off. You'd never notice unless you were looking. She walked over and ran her hand along the wood. It felt solid, but when she pressed near one of the logs, something clicked deep inside the wall. A section of the wall, about 3 feet wide, shifted inward an inch. Her heart started pounding. She pushed harder. The hidden door swung open on silent, well-oiled hinges, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Maya stood at the top of those stairs for a long moment, flashlight beam cutting through the black below. Every instinct screamed at her to leave, to close the door and pretend she'd never found it. This was the moment in horror movies where the audience yells at the screen, "Don't go down there." But curiosity is a powerful thing. And Maya Torres had spent 5 years of her life surviving, never questioning, never exploring, just enduring. Maybe that's why she descended. Maybe she was tired of being afraid of everything. The stairs were stone, carved directly from the mountain bedrock. They spiraled down, farther than seemed possible. Her footsteps echoed softly. The air grew colder with each step, but it wasn't damp. It was dry, controlled, like climate control. At the bottom, her flashlight revealed a corridor. The walls here weren't wood, but smooth stone, almost like a tunnel. Modern concrete mixed with natural rock. She followed it forward, one hand trailing along the wall for balance. The corridor ended at a door, but this wasn't a rustic log door or even a modern one. This was a vault door, circular, made of steel, with a massive wheel lock in the center. The kind of door you'd see in a bank or a military installation. The kind of door designed to keep things very, very secure. Maya stood frozen, staring at it. What the hell was this? She approached slowly and examined the door. Despite being underground for God knows how long, it showed no signs of rust. The steel was pristine, like it had been installed yesterday. And beside the wheel lock was a small keypad, the numbers faintly glowing green in the darkness. Someone had power down here. Somehow, impossibly, there was electricity running to this hidden vault beneath a house that supposedly had no utilities. Maya's hands were shaking now. She reached out and touched the wheel lock. It was cold, solid, real. This wasn't some relic from the 1800s. This was modern security, military-grade security. Her great-aunt, the quiet woman who lived alone in the mountains, who never let anyone inside, who tried to sell this property 3 times and found no buyers, had built a vault. Why? What was she protecting? Maya gripped the wheel lock and tried to turn it. It didn't budge, locked tight. She looked at the keypad, its green numbers glowing patiently in the darkness. She had no code, no idea what combination might open it. She stepped back, breathing hard, mind racing. Then she remembered. The lawyer had mentioned 2 keys, one for the front door and one they didn't know the purpose of. Maya pulled the envelope from her pocket and shook out the second key. It was smaller, silver, with a strange pattern cut into the teeth. She examined the vault door more carefully with her flashlight. There, nearly hidden beside the keypad, was a small keyhole. Her hands trembled as she fitted the key into the lock. It slid in perfectly. She turned it. Something deep inside the vault clicked. The green numbers on the keypad blinked off, then back on, and a new display appeared. Code required. But below that, in smaller letters, backup override accepted, manual entry permitted. Maya stared at the words. The key had overridden some kind of security system. Now she just needed the code. She thought frantically. What would Eleanor use? A birthday? An anniversary? She didn't even know when her great-aunt was born. Then something occurred to her. She pulled out the letter from the lawyer again and checked the date. Eleanor had passed away on October 16th. She tried 10-16. The keypad beeped negative. She tried 1016. Another beep. Then she thought about the property. Eleanor had bought it in 1976. She tried 1976. The keypad beeped 3 times, then went dark. For a moment, Maya thought she'd locked herself out. Then, deep inside the vault, mechanisms began to move, heavy bolts sliding back, locks disengaging. The wheel lock on the door began to turn on its own, slowly, deliberately. The vault was opening. The lawyer's words echoed in her head. Most folks around here think the place is cursed. Strange things happened up there. Your great-aunt never let anyone inside. This wasn't a curse. This was a secret. And standing in the cold darkness of that underground corridor, watching the vault door begin to swing open, Maya Torres realized she'd inherited more than a worthless log house on a forgotten mountain. She'd inherited a mystery, one that someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to hide. The door stopped moving, open just wide enough for a person to slip through. Beyond it was only darkness. Maya stood at the threshold, flashlight gripping in her hand, and made a choice. She stepped inside. Maya stepped through the vault door into absolute darkness. Her flashlight beam swept across the space, and what it revealed made her knees buckle. The vault was massive, easily the size of the entire house above. The walls were lined floor to ceiling with climate-controlled glass cases, each one illuminated by soft LED lighting that flickered on as she entered, sensing her movement. And inside those cases was a fortune beyond anything she could have imagined. Paintings. Dozens of them. Hundreds, maybe. Her flashlight wasn't even necessary anymore. The entire room glowed with gentle light, revealing canvases in ornate frames, each one positioned perfectly, each one protected behind museum-quality glass. Maya walked forward slowly, her footsteps echoing on the polished concrete floor. She approached the first case and stared. The painting showed a woman in a blue dress, her face turned slightly away, rendered in bold, geometric shapes that somehow captured both movement and stillness. Even with her limited knowledge of art, Maya recognized the style. She'd seen it in textbooks, in documentaries, in museums she'd visited on school field trips back when life was simpler. A small brass plaque beneath the frame read, "Woman in Blue, Pablo Picasso, 1901. Her breath caught. This couldn't be real. This had to be a reproduction, a copy, something her great-aunt had collected because she liked art. But the longer she stared, the more she saw the texture of the paint, the way certain brushstrokes caught the light, the subtle cracking in the canvas that came only with age, real age, over a century of age. She moved to the next case, a landscape of twisted trees and swirling sky, rendered in thick, passionate strokes of blue and yellow and violet. The plaque read, "The Olive Trees, Vincent van Gogh, 1889. Maya's hands started shaking. She moved faster now, case after case, painting after painting. Monet, Renoir, Rembrandt, Vermeer, Caravaggio, names she recognized from art history classes she'd taken in high school, masters, legends, and their work was here, sealed in a vault beneath a rotting log house in the middle of nowhere. But it wasn't just paintings. As she moved deeper into the vault, she found other cases. One contained gold bars, stacked neatly, each one stamped with markings she didn't recognize. Foreign words. Dates from the 1940s. Another case held jewelry, necklaces dripping with diamonds and emeralds, rings with stones the size of her thumbnail, tiaras that looked like they belonged to royalty. Each piece sat on black velvet, perfectly preserved, glittering under the soft lights. A third section contained documents, leather portfolios and wooden boxes filled with papers protected in archival sleeves. She opened one carefully and found herself staring at what looked like a deed, written in German, dated 1938. Another contained letters, dozens of them, written in elegant script on yellowed paper. Maya's mind was racing, trying to comprehend what she was seeing. This wasn't just a collection. This was a treasury, a museum, a vault filled with items worth more than most people would see in 10 lifetimes. Her great-aunt had been living on top of hundreds of millions of dollars and never told anyone. Why? Maya walked the perimeter of the vault, taking it all in, trying to process the enormity of what she'd discovered. And then, at the far end of the room, she found a desk. It was simple, made of dark wood, with a leather chair positioned in front of it. On the desk sat a series of leather-bound journals, stacked neatly, each one labeled with a year. The earliest was marked 1943, the most recent just months ago. Maya sat down in the chair, her legs no longer capable of holding her weight. She pulled the oldest journal toward her and opened it carefully. The handwriting inside was precise, elegant, written in fountain pen ink that had faded to a soft brown. January 5th, 1943. My name is Eleanor Torres, though that is not the name I was born with. I am writing this in case I do not survive what comes next. In case the men who hunt me find what they are looking for. Someone should know the truth. Maya's hands trembled as she turned the page. I was born Rachel Mendel in Vienna, Austria, in 1920. My father was an art dealer, one of the most respected in Europe. Our gallery was famous. We represented the finest artists, housed the most valuable collections. I grew up surrounded by beauty, by culture, by everything the world had to offer. Then the Nazis came. Maya felt her throat tighten. She kept reading. In 1938, they took our gallery. They took our home. They took my father and put him on a train to a place we had never heard of called Dachau. My mother and I fled. We had nothing except what we could carry. But my father, in his wisdom, had prepared for this. He had hidden our most valuable pieces, scattered them among trusted friends, buried them in places only he knew about. Before he was taken, he gave me a list, names, locations, instructions. He told me, if I do not return, you must save them, not for their value, but for what they represent. Beauty must survive, even when everything else burns. I was 18 years old. I did not understand what he was asking of me. I only knew I had to try. Maya turned page after page, reading Eleanor's story unfold in careful handwriting. How she had spent years tracking down the hidden artworks. How she had forged documents, bribed officials, risked her life again and again to recover pieces that the Nazis had stolen or that had been scattered across a war-torn Europe. How she had assumed a new identity, changed her name, disappeared into America with a collection worth more than some country's GDP. By 1946, I had recovered 43 pieces. Paintings, sculptures, jewelry, gold that had been taken from my family and others like us. I knew I could never sell them. They were too recognizable. The moment any of these appeared on the market, questions would be asked, authorities would get involved, and the wrong people would come looking. So I decided to protect them, to hide them, to wait until the world was ready for the truth. Maya's eyes burned with tears. She understood now. This wasn't stolen treasure. This was survival. This was resistance. This was one woman's lifelong mission to protect beauty from those who would destroy it. She reached for the most recent journal, the one dated this year. The handwriting was shakier now, the letters less precise, but still unmistakably Eleanor's. I am dying. The doctors have given me months, perhaps weeks, and I find myself thinking about what happens to all of this when I am gone. I have no children, no husband, no one I can trust with this burden I have carried for 76 years. Except, perhaps, Maya. I have watched her from afar, this great niece I barely know. I have seen how she sacrificed her own dreams to raise her sister, how she works herself to exhaustion without complaint, how she carries weight that would break most people and still finds the strength to smile. She is stronger than she knows, and she deserves more than the life she has been given. So I am leaving her this house, this vault, this collection. Not because I expect her to carry my burden, but because I believe she is capable of deciding what to do with it, to sell it, to donate it, to keep it hidden, whatever she chooses. It will be the right choice. I only hope she understands why I did this, why I spent my life in hiding, protecting these pieces. Beauty matters. Art matters. The things we create, the culture we preserve, these are what make us human. And sometimes keeping them safe means sacrificing everything else. Tell my story, Maya. Or don't. Either way, you are free. Maya closed the journal and sat in silence for a long moment. Tears streamed down her face, falling onto the leather cover, leaving dark spots on the aged material. Her great-aunt hadn't been a hermit. She hadn't been crazy or cursed. She'd been a guardian, a protector of history. And now she'd passed that responsibility to Maya. The weight of it was overwhelming. Maya stood and walked back through the vault, seeing everything differently now. These weren't just valuable objects. They were pieces of lives destroyed, families torn apart, beauty saved from the flames. Each painting, each sculpture, each document represented someone's loss and Eleanor's determination that their legacy would survive. She stopped in front of a small portrait of a young girl with dark eyes and a sad smile. The plaque read, "Portrait of Sarah, Artist Unknown, 1937. Maya wondered who Sarah was, if she'd survived the war, if she'd ever known her portrait had been saved. Hours passed. Maya sat at Eleanor's desk with her laptop, using the satellite internet connection she'd discovered running to the vault, searching for information on the pieces surrounding her. What she found made her stomach drop. The Picasso alone was worth an estimated $23 million. It had been reported stolen from a private collection in Paris in 1942. The Van Gogh was valued at $38 million, missing since 1944. The Rembrandt, a portrait of a Dutch merchant, was on every major stolen art registry in the world. Value, $47 million. She calculated as she went, her hands shaking as the numbers grew larger and larger. By the time she'd researched even half the collection, she'd counted over $265 million in verified, authenticated masterpieces. $265 million. Sitting in a vault beneath a house no one wanted to buy for $5,000. Maya's phone buzzed, startling her. She'd been underground for almost 6 hours. Emma had texted, "You okay? Mrs. Chen is making me go to bed soon." Maya typed back with trembling fingers, "I'm fine. Be home late. Love you." She needed to think. She needed to process this. She needed to figure out what the hell she was supposed to do with information that could change her entire life, that could change Emma's life, that could potentially change the lives of the families these pieces had been stolen from. What happens next will turn this night upside down, reveal a truth nobody expected, and remind us why sometimes the quietest voices carry the most power. Stay tuned to see what happens next. If you're enjoying the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. Maya closed her laptop and stood. She needed air. She needed to see the sky. She'd been underground too long, surrounded by ghosts and history and impossible decisions. She climbed the stone stairs back to the main house, sealed the hidden door, and stepped out onto the sagging porch. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The forest was quiet, except for the wind and the distant call of an owl. She pulled out her phone to check the time and froze. There were 3 missed calls from a number she didn't recognize, and a text message from that same number sent just 10 minutes ago. The text read, "We know what you found. Don't tell anyone. We're watching." Maya's blood turned to ice. She spun around, scanning the tree line, looking for movement, for any sign of who might be out there. Nothing. Just shadows and pines and the growing darkness. Her phone buzzed again. Another text. The house, the vault, all of it belongs to people more powerful than you can imagine. Walk away while you still can. Maya's hands were shaking so hard she almost dropped the phone. Someone knew. Someone had been watching the house, watching her. How? How could they possibly know? She thought about the satellite internet in the vault. Had her searches triggered something? Had someone been monitoring Eleanor's connection, waiting to see if anyone would access it? A third text arrived. You have 24 hours to leave and forget what you saw, or your sister Emma will pay the price. We know where she lives. We know where she goes to school. We know everything. The mention of Emma snapped something inside Maya. Fear transformed instantly into rage. She typed back with fury, "You touch her and I'll burn everything in that vault to ashes before you ever get near it." The response came immediately. "Then we understand each other. Leave. Now." Maya stood on that porch, phone clutched in her hand, staring out at the darkening forest. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to get in her car, to drive home and pack up Emma and disappear. But another voice, quieter but stronger, whispered, "No." She thought about Eleanor, 18 years old, fleeing Vienna with nothing but a list and a promise to her father. She thought about 76 years of hiding, of protecting, of sacrificing everything to keep beauty safe from those who would destroy it. She thought about Emma, about the life they'd been living, paycheck to paycheck, drowning in debt and exhaustion, about the opportunities this discovery could give them, about the good this collection could do if returned to the families it was stolen from, or donated to museums, or used to create something meaningful. And she thought about the text message, threatening her, threatening Emma, demanding she walk away from the only real chance at a better life she'd ever been given. Maya made a decision. She wasn't leaving. She walked back into the house, locked the door behind her, and pulled out her phone again. She opened her contacts and found the number for the lawyer, Whitmore. It went to voicemail. "Mr. Whitmore, this is Maya Torres. I need you to call me back immediately. It's urgent. It's about the property Eleanor left me. There are things you need to know." Then she called Dennis at the diner. "Maya, you okay? You sound weird." "Dennis, I need a favor. A big one." "Name it." "I need you to go check on Emma, right now. Don't tell her I asked. Just make sure she's okay. Make sure no one suspicious is hanging around the apartment. Can you do that?" There was a pause. "You in some kind of trouble?" "Maybe, I don't know. Please, Dennis, just check on her." "On my way." Maya hung up and sat down on one of the sheet-covered chairs. Her mind was racing. Who were these people? How did they know about the vault? Had they been watching Eleanor all these years? Were they the reason she'd never tried to sell the collection, never tried to return it to its rightful owners? Had they killed her? The thought hit Maya like a punch to the gut. The lawyer had said Eleanor died peacefully in her sleep. But what if that wasn't true? What if someone had finally decided the old woman had lived too long, knew too much, protected too much? Maya pulled out her laptop again and started researching. She searched for Eleanor Torres, for deaths in the area, for anything suspicious around the date of her great-aunt's passing. What she found made her stomach turn. A small article in the local paper, dated 6 weeks ago. Local resident found deceased. Eleanor Torres, age 103, was found in her remote mountain home. Authorities report no signs of foul play. Ms. Torres had no known relatives in the area and lived alone for over 40 years. 103. Her great-aunt had lived to be 103 years old, alone, protecting a vault full of stolen masterpieces, and had died right around the time someone started paying attention again. Maya dug deeper. She found property records showing that someone had tried to purchase Eleanor's land 3 years ago. The buyer was listed as a shell corporation called Millennium Holdings LLC. Eleanor had refused to sell. 2 years ago, another attempt, same company, same refusal. 1 year ago, a third attempt, this time with an offer of $200,000 for land that was supposedly worth $5,000. Eleanor had still refused. Then, 6 weeks ago, she was dead. And now Maya owned the property, and someone wanted her gone. Her phone rang, startling her so badly she nearly dropped it. The screen showed Dennis calling. "Emma's fine," he said as soon as she answered. "She's at your apartment watching TV with Mrs. Chen. No one suspicious around. I checked the whole building." "What's going on, Maya?" "I can't explain right now, but can you do me another favor? Can you stay there tonight? Sleep on our couch? I just need to know someone's watching out for her." "Of course, but Maya, seriously, what's happening?" "I found something valuable, and some people don't want me to have it. That's all I can say right now." Dennis was quiet for a moment. "You need help? You need me to call someone?" "Not yet. But Dennis, thank you for everything." "Anytime, kid. Be careful." Maya hung up and sat in the darkness of the old house, listening to it settle and creak around her. She thought about what to do next. She couldn't go home, not yet. If these people were watching, they'd know she was scared. They'd know they'd gotten to her. She needed to be smart. She needed leverage. Maya pulled up the photos she'd taken of the vault on her phone and started uploading them to a secure cloud storage account. Then she drafted an email addressed to multiple recipients: the FBI's art crime team, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and 3 major auction houses. The email read, "My name is Maya Torres. I have discovered a collection of stolen art and historical artifacts hidden in a property I recently inherited. The collection includes verified works by Picasso, Van Gogh, Rembrandt, and dozens of other masters, all reported stolen during World War II. Estimated value exceeds $265 million. I have been threatened to keep this discovery quiet. This email is set to send automatically in 48 hours unless I cancel it. If anything happens to me or my family, the world will know what I found and where to find it." She saved it as a draft, but didn't schedule it yet. First, she needed more proof, more documentation, more insurance. She went back down to the vault and spent the next 3 hours photographing everything, every painting, every piece of jewelry, every document. She copied Eleanor's journals page by page, capturing her great-aunt's entire story. By the time she finished, it was past midnight. Maya's eyes burned with exhaustion, but her mind was wired, running on adrenaline and fear and determination. She climbed back up to the main house and lay down on one of the sheet-covered beds upstairs, her phone clutched in her hand, every sound making her jump. Sleep didn't come easy. When it did, it was filled with dreams of men in dark suits, of Emma crying, of paintings burning, of Eleanor's voice whispering, "Tell my story." Maya woke to sunlight streaming through the broken window. Her entire body ached from sleeping on the ancient mattress. She checked her phone immediately. No new threats, no missed calls except one from Whitmore's office. She called back. "Miss Torres." Whitmore's voice was tight, nervous. "I received your message. What exactly did you find at the property?" Maya took a deep breath. "Mr. Whitmore, did anyone ever try to buy this property after Eleanor died? Before it came to me?" There was a long pause. "How did you know that?" "Who was it?" Another pause. "A company called Millennium Holdings. They contacted us the day after Eleanor's death, offered to purchase the property before the estate was even settled. I told them it had already been willed to a beneficiary." "Did they say why they wanted it?" "They claimed they were interested in developing the land, but Miss Torres, their offer was substantial, very substantial, much more than the property is worth." "How much?" $5 million. Maya's hands started shaking again. $5 million for a piece of land supposedly worth 5,000. They knew. They'd known all along what was in that vault. "Mr. Whitmore, I need you to do something for me. I need you to file paperwork establishing me as the legal owner of all contents found on the property, not just the land itself. Can you do that? I suppose so, but why? Just do it. Today. And Mr. Whitmore, if anything happens to me, if I disappear or have an accident or anything suspicious, I need you to contact the FBI immediately. Tell them everything I told you. Can you promise me that? His voice dropped to a whisper. Miss Torres, what exactly did you find? Maya looked out the window at the forest surrounding the house. Somewhere out there people were watching, waiting, planning. The truth, she said simply. I found the truth. Maya didn't go home that Sunday. She couldn't. Not yet. Instead, she drove into town and parked outside the public library, waiting for it to open. Her phone had been buzzing with texts from Emma asking when she'd be back, and she'd replied with careful lies about the property needing more work than expected, about staying to document everything for the sale. The library opened at 9. Maya was the first one through the door. She found a computer in the back corner and started digging. Millennium Holdings, LLC. She searched corporate registries, business filings, anything that might tell her who was really behind the company trying to buy her property. What she found was a maze. Millennium Holdings was registered in Delaware, a common tactic for hiding ownership. It was owned by another company, which was owned by another, each one a shell, each one leading nowhere. But after 2 hours of searching, she found a name buried in a stockholder report from 5 years ago. Marcus Hendricks. She searched the name, and her blood ran cold. Marcus Hendricks was a real estate developer, but not the normal kind. His companies specialized in acquiring properties with murky histories, properties involved in legal disputes or inheritance battles. He'd been investigated twice for fraud, but never charged. His net worth was estimated at over $400 million, and he wanted her mountain. Maya kept digging. She found articles about Hendricks, photos from charity galas and business conferences. He was in his 60s, silver-haired, always smiling in that way rich men smile when they know they're untouchable. But what caught her attention was an article from 6 years ago in an art industry magazine. The headline read, "Private Collector Expands Holdings, Questionable Provenance Raises Eyebrows." The article detailed how Hendricks had been quietly acquiring art pieces through back channels, paying cash, avoiding the major auction houses. Several pieces he'd purchased had later been identified as stolen or of questionable origin. When confronted, Hendricks claimed ignorance and returned the items, but the pattern was clear. He was hunting for stolen art, and somehow he'd found out about Eleanor's collection. Maya's phone rang. Unknown number. She stared at it, debating whether to answer. Finally, she did. "Miss Torres." The voice was male, smooth, cultured. "My name is Marcus Hendricks. I believe we have something to discuss." Maya's heart hammered. "How did you get this number?" "That's not important. What's important is that you understand the situation you've found yourself in. You've discovered something that doesn't belong to you. Something that powerful people have been searching for a very long time. It was left to me, legally. It's mine." Hendricks laughed softly. "Legally? That's an interesting word. Tell me, Miss Torres, do you think the legal system will side with a waitress who suddenly claims ownership of $265 million in stolen art? Art that's been missing for 70 years. Art that entire governments have been trying to recover. It wasn't stolen by my great-aunt. It was saved by her." Saved, stolen, such subjective terms. The point is, you're in over your head. I'm offering you a way out, a generous way out. $1 million cash for the property and everything in it. You walk away, start a new life. Take care of that sister of yours. Everyone wins. Maya's jaw clenched. And if I say no? Then things become complicated. Legal challenges to the will. questions about your great-aunt's mental state when she drafted it, investigations into whether you're trying to fence stolen property. Your life becomes very difficult, very quickly. And your sister, well, young Emma, she's got her whole life ahead of her. It would be a shame if your poor decisions affected her future. The threat was clear. Maya's hands shook with rage. You threaten my sister again and I'll make sure every piece in that vault gets donated to museums before you can touch it. Every painting, every document, everything. You'll get nothing. There was a pause. When Hendricks spoke again, his voice had lost its smooth edge. You're making a mistake, Miss Torres. I've been very patient, very reasonable, but I'm not the only one looking for that collection. There are others who won't be so polite, people who will do whatever it takes. Then I guess I'd better find some help. Maya hung up before he could respond. Her hands were trembling so badly she could barely hold the phone. She sat there for a moment, trying to calm her racing heart. Then she noticed someone standing at the end of the row of computers. An older man, maybe 70, with close-cropped grey hair and the kind of posture that screamed military background. He was watching her with sharp, intelligent eyes. Excuse me, he said, approaching slowly. I couldn't help but overhear part of your conversation. Did you say something about stolen art? Maya's first instinct was to deny everything, to shut down, to run. But something in the man's expression stopped her. He didn't look threatening. He looked concerned. Who are you? She asked. Robert Chen, retired FBI. I worked art crimes for 32 years before I moved up here to fish and forget about the world. He pulled out a worn leather wallet and showed her his retired credentials. But old habits die hard, and when I hear someone talking about 265 million in stolen art, my ears perk up. Maya stared at him, trying to decide if this was a trap, if Hendricks had somehow sent this man to trick her. But something about Robert Chen felt genuine, solid. I need help, she said quietly. I found something my great-aunt left me, and there are people who want it badly enough to threaten my family. Robert sat down in the chair next to her. Start from the beginning. Tell me everything. So she did. She told him about Eleanor, about the house, about the vault. She showed him the photos on her phone, Eleanor's journals, the research she'd done. She told him about Hendricks, about the threats, about Emma. Robert listened without interrupting, his expression growing more serious with each detail. When she finished, he sat back and let out a low whistle. Your great-aunt was Rachel Mendel. Maya blinked. You know about her. Every art crimes agent knows about her, or knew about the legend anyway. There were rumors for decades about a woman who'd recovered pieces stolen by the Nazis, who'd hidden them somewhere in America. But no one could ever prove it. No one could ever find her. He looked at Maya with something like awe. Your great-aunt was one of the most successful art recovery operatives in history, and no one even knew she was still alive. But she never returned the pieces. She kept them hidden. Robert shook his head. You don't understand the world she was living in. 1945, 46, the war just ended, Europe in chaos, stolen art flooding the black market, Nazis escaping to South America with fortunes in their pockets. If Rachel had tried to return those pieces through official channels, half of them would have disappeared again. Corrupt officials, dealers looking to make a quick buck, families fighting over ownership. She did the only thing she could. She protected them until the world was stable enough to handle the truth. But it's been 76 years. And she waited until she found someone she trusted to make the right decision. He looked at Maya intently. You. She chose you. Maya felt tears burning behind her eyes. I don't know what the right decision is. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You're supposed to do what she couldn't. You're supposed to tell the truth. Robert leaned forward. But first, we need to keep you and your sister safe. This Hendricks character, he's bad news, but he's not your biggest problem. If word gets out about this collection, you'll have art thieves, organized crime, foreign governments, all of them coming for you. We need to move fast. What do I do? Robert pulled out his phone. First, we get you real legal representation. I know a lawyer, works in the city, specializes in cultural property law. Her name is Diana Hoffman. If anyone can navigate this mess, it's her. He started dialing. Second, we document everything properly. Chain of custody, provenance, the whole 9 yards. We make it impossible for anyone to claim you're trying to steal or fence this stuff. He put the phone to his ear. And third, we get your sister somewhere safe. These people threatened her. We take that threat seriously. Maya nodded, feeling like she could finally breathe. She wasn't alone anymore. By that afternoon, Maya was sitting in a coffee shop 3 towns over with Robert Chen and a woman who looked like she could argue with God and win. Diana Hoffman was in her 50s, with steel-grey hair cut short and glasses that magnified her already intense eyes. She'd driven 2 hours from the city after Robert's call, and she'd brought a recorder, a legal pad, and the kind of energy that suggested she never lost. "Tell me everything," Diana said, clicking her pen. "And I mean everything. Don't leave out a single detail." Maya went through the story again. This time, Diana interrupted constantly with questions. What exactly did the will say? Who witnessed it? What was the exact wording on the vault door? Had Maya touched anything without gloves? Had she told anyone else about the discovery? After an hour, Diana sat back and smiled. It was the smile of a shark that had just spotted blood in the water. "This is the case of the century," she said. "Do you understand that? This is bigger than anything I've ever worked on, bigger than anything most lawyers will ever touch." "Can you help me?" Maya asked. "Can I help you? Miss Torres, I would work this case for free just for the precedent it'll set. But yes, I can help you. And more than that, I can protect you." She pulled out a document from her briefcase. "First thing we do is establish clear legal ownership. Your great-aunt left you the property and all contents therein. That's ironclad. But we need to file additional paperwork making it explicitly clear that you are the legal custodian of every item in that vault. What about the families the art was stolen from? Don't they have a claim?" Diana's expression softened slightly. "That's the question at the heart of this whole thing. And yes, eventually we'll need to address that. But first, we establish your right to control the collection. Then we work with international authorities to identify legitimate claimants and return pieces to their rightful owners. This isn't about you getting rich, Miss Torres. This is about you having the legal standing to do the right thing without getting crushed by people like Marcus Hendricks." Robert spoke up. "What about the threats? What about her sister?" Diana's jaw tightened. "I'm filing for an emergency restraining order against Hendricks and his companies. We'll cite the phone call, the texts, all of it. And we're going to make some noise. Press conference, media coverage, the works. Once this is public, it becomes much harder for anyone to make you disappear quietly." Maya felt her stomach drop. "Public? I don't want to be on TV. I just want to keep Emma safe." "The best way to keep Emma safe is to make sure the entire world knows what you found and that you're working with authorities. Right now, you're vulnerable because you're alone and secret. We make you public and protected." Diana leaned forward. "Trust me on this. I've worked cases involving dangerous people. The moment they can't operate in shadows anymore, they lose most of their power." Maya thought about Emma, about the life they'd been living, about how everything was about to change whether she wanted it to or not. "Okay," she said finally. "What do we do first?" Within 3 days, Maya's world had turned upside down. Diana had moved fast. She'd filed the ownership paperwork, secured the restraining order, and scheduled a press conference for Friday afternoon at the county courthouse. She'd also arranged for Emma to stay with Robert Chen's daughter in a town 2 hours away, under a different name, just until things settled down. Emma had been confused, scared, angry. "Why can't I stay with you?" she'd asked, tears streaming down her face. Maya had held her tight, breathing in the scent of her sister's strawberry shampoo, trying not to cry herself. "Because I need to know you're safe, baby. Just for a little while. I promise, as soon as this is over, we'll be together again. And things are going to be so much better." "What did you find in that house?" Emma had whispered. "Something that's going to change our lives. Something good, I swear." Now, standing backstage at the courthouse, waiting to walk out in front of cameras and reporters, Maya felt like she might throw up. She was wearing clothes Diana had bought her, a simple black dress that made her look older, more serious. Her hair had been styled by someone Diana knew. She barely recognized herself in the mirror. "You ready?" Diana asked, appearing beside her. "No." "Good. That means you'll be careful with your words. Just stick to the statement we prepared. Don't answer questions we haven't discussed. And remember, you're not doing anything wrong. You're doing something brave." Robert squeezed her shoulder. "You've got this, kid." They walked out together. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters, cameras, curious locals who'd heard something big was happening. Maya's legs felt like water. Diana stepped up to the microphone first. "Good afternoon. My name is Diana Hoffman, and I'm here representing my client, Maya Torres. 3 days ago, Miss Torres inherited a property from her great-aunt, Eleanor Torres, also known by her birth name, Rachel Mendel. What Miss Torres discovered on that property is something the art world has been searching for 76 years. The crowd rustled with interest. Hidden in a vault beneath the property is a collection of artwork, historical artifacts, and cultural treasures recovered by Rachel Mendel after World War II. These pieces were stolen by the Nazi regime from Jewish families across Europe. Miss Mendel spent her life protecting these items with the intention that they would one day be returned to their rightful owners or placed in museums where they could be appreciated by the world. Cameras flashed. Reporters started shouting questions. Diana held up a hand. The collection includes verified works by Pablo Picasso, Vincent van Gogh, Rembrandt, and dozens of other masters. Estimated value exceeds $265 million. Miss Torres is working with federal authorities and international cultural property organizations to properly catalogue and return these pieces. She is not seeking to profit from this discovery. She is seeking to honor her great-aunt's legacy and do right by the families these treasures were stolen from. More shouting, more questions. Diana gestured to Maya. Maya stepped forward, her heart pounding so loud she could barely hear her own thoughts. She unfolded the statement she'd prepared with Diana's help. "My name is Maya Torres," she began, her voice shaking slightly. "I'm 24 years old. I work as a waitress. 3 weeks ago, I didn't know my great-aunt very well. I didn't know about her past, about what she'd survived, about what she'd protected all these years. But now I do, and I understand that she trusted me with something bigger than myself." She looked up from the paper, directly at the cameras. "These pieces don't belong to me. They belong to the families they were stolen from. They belong to history. My great-aunt spent her entire life making sure they survived. Now it's my job to make sure they find their way home. Whatever that takes, however long it takes, that's what I'm going to do." The questions came like a flood. "Miss Torres, what will you do with the money? Have you been contacted by the families? Are you afraid of theft or violence? How did your great-aunt acquire so many pieces?" Diana stepped back to the microphone. "We'll be releasing a full inventory within the week. We're working with the FBI's Art Crimes Division, Interpol, and several international organizations. This is a complex process, but we're committed to full transparency. Thank you." They turned to leave, but one reporter's voice cut through the noise. "Miss Torres, is it true that Marcus Hendricks threatened you to keep this quiet?" Maya stopped. Diana grabbed her arm, whispering, "Don't answer that." But Maya turned back to the microphone. "Yes, I was threatened. I was told to walk away, to keep quiet, to sell the property and forget what I found. My sister was threatened. But I'm done being scared. The truth matters more than fear." The courthouse steps erupted. Cameras flashed like lightning. Reporters pushed forward, shouting more questions. Diana pulled Maya away, Robert running interference, and they hurried back inside through a side entrance. "That last part wasn't in the script," Diana said, but she was smiling. But damn, it was good. By that evening, Maya's face was on every news channel. The story had exploded. Viral videos, trending hashtags, think pieces about Nazi-looted art, about heroic resistance, about a waitress who'd discovered history. Maya sat in a hotel room Diana had booked for her, watching herself on TV, feeling disconnected from the woman on screen. Was that really her? That person who looked so serious, so determined? Her phone had been ringing non-stop. She'd changed her number twice already. But some calls got through. Dennis from the diner, crying, saying he'd always known she was special. Mrs. Chen, asking if Emma was safe. The lawyer Whitmore, stammering apologies for not realizing what Eleanor had left behind. And then one call that made her blood run cold. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "You've made a terrible mistake." The voice was unfamiliar, accented, Eastern European maybe. "The press conference very foolish. You think cameras protect you? You think lawyers protect you? There are people who want what you found, people who won't stop because of publicity. Who is this? Someone who knew Rachel Mendel. Someone who's been looking for her collection for a very long time. You should have taken Hendricks's offer. He was being generous. We won't be." The line went dead. Maya sat frozen, phone still pressed to her ear. Diana was right. Going public had made some people back off, but it had also put a target on her back for others. People who operated outside the law, who didn't care about press conferences or restraining orders. There was a knock at her hotel room door. Maya jumped, her heart racing. "It's Robert!" a voice called. She opened the door to find Robert Chen standing there with a large, serious-looking man in a dark suit. "This is Agent Marcus Shaw, FBI Art Crimes Division. He needs to talk to you." The agent stepped inside, his expression grave. "Miss Torres, we've been monitoring chatter since your press conference. There are at least 3 different criminal organizations that have expressed interest in your discovery. We're talking about serious players, Russian mob, Italian crime families, and some independent operators we've been tracking for years. You're in danger." Maya sank onto the bed. "What do I do?" "You let us protect you. We move you to a safe location, we secure the vault, and we expedite the process of cataloging and transferring the collection to proper authorities. The faster we get this stuff out of your hands, the safer you'll be." "What about Emma?" "She's already under protection. Robert arranged it." Shaw pulled out a folder. "But I need you to understand something. These people, they're not going to give up easily. One of the items in your great-aunt's vault is worth more than all the others combined. Do you know which one I'm talking about?" Maya shook her head. Shaw opened the folder and showed her a photo. It was a small painting, maybe 12 inches by 18 inches, of a woman reading a letter by a window. The light in the painting seemed to glow from within. "This is Vermeer's Woman Reading a Letter by Moonlight," Shaw said. "It was thought to be lost forever, destroyed in the war. It's considered one of the most important missing pieces in art history. On the black market, it would sell for over $100 million. Alone." Maya stared at the photo. She remembered seeing this painting in the vault, remembered thinking it was beautiful, but not understanding its significance. There are collectors who would kill for this piece, Shaw continued. People who've been searching for it their entire lives. Now that they know it exists, now that they know where it is, they won't stop. Maya felt the weight of it crushing down on her. This was too big, too dangerous, too much for a waitress from nowhere to handle. But then she thought about Eleanor, about an 18-year-old girl fleeing Vienna with nothing but a promise to her father, about 76 years of hiding, protecting, waiting for the right moment. Eleanor had been brave when she had every reason to be afraid. She'd stood against Nazis, against thieves, against a world that wanted to erase her family's legacy. Maya could be brave too. "What do you need from me?" she asked Agent Shaw. Over the next week, Maya lived in 3 different safe houses, moving every 2 days. FBI agents catalogued the vault's contents, working around the clock. Diana coordinated with lawyers from 7 different countries to identify the rightful owners of the pieces. And the threats kept coming. A note slipped under one safe house door. "Give us the Vermeer and we'll leave you alone." A phone call to Diana's office. "The girl can't hide forever." An attempted break-in at the mountain property, stopped only by the heavy FBI presence. But something else was happening too. Families were coming forward. A woman in her 80s who'd lost everything in the war saw a photo of a necklace from the collection and broke down crying. It had belonged to her mother. A man from Amsterdam recognized a painting that had hung in his grandparents' home before they were taken to Auschwitz. Maya watched these reunions on the news from her safe house, tears streaming down her face. This was why Eleanor had protected these pieces. This was why it mattered. Robert visited her often, bringing news, keeping her spirits up. "You're doing good, kid," he said one evening. "Your great-aunt would be proud." "I'm scared," Maya admitted. "Every day I'm terrified." That's how you know you're doing something important. If it was easy, if it was safe, anyone could do it. But this takes guts. On the 9th day after the press conference, Diana arrived at the safe house with a folder full of documents and a smile Maya had never seen before. "We found him," Diana said. "Found who?" "Your great-aunt's father, your great-great-grandfather, David Mendel." She opened the folder. "He survived Dachau, barely. After the war, he emigrated to Palestine, then to the United States in 1952. He died in New York in 1979. Maya felt her chest tighten. Eleanor never knew? "We don't think so. They lost contact during the war. He thought she was dead. She thought he was dead. They both spent the rest of their lives grieving for each other, not knowing they'd both survived." Diana pulled out a photo. An old man with kind eyes and Eleanor's sharp nose, standing in front of a small shop in New York. He opened an art supply store in Brooklyn, taught painting to neighborhood kids, never remarried, never stopped looking for his daughter. Maya took the photo with shaking hands. This man, this survivor, he'd trusted Eleanor with everything. He'd believed she would save what mattered. And she had. "There's more," Diana said gently. "He had other family, cousins, nephews. They're still alive. When we contacted them about the collection, about what Eleanor did, they said they want to meet you." 3 days later, Maya sat in a restaurant in the city, surrounded by people who shared her blood and her history. David Mendel's nephew, a man in his 70s named Joseph. His daughter, Rebecca. Rebecca's children. A whole family that Maya had never known existed. They looked at photos of Eleanor, photos of the collection, and they cried. They told stories about David, about how he'd never stopped believing in art, in beauty, in the power of preservation. "He used to say," Joseph told Maya, "that every painting saved was a life remembered, that the Nazis could take everything else, but they couldn't take the beauty we created. They couldn't take our culture, our history, not if someone was brave enough to protect it. Eleanor was that someone, Maya said softly. And now you are too, Rebecca added, reaching across the table to squeeze Maya's hand. You're part of this family now, really part of it. And we're going to help you finish what Eleanor started. That night, back at the safe house, Maya called Emma for the first time in a week. The FBI had finally cleared the line as secure. Maya? Emma's voice was small, scared. Hey baby, I'm okay. Everything's okay. When can I come home? Soon, I promise. But Emma, I need to tell you something. About why all this is happening, about what I found, about our family. And for the next hour, Maya told her sister the whole story, about Eleanor and Rachel and David Mendel, about art saved from the ashes, about beauty that survived when everything else burned, about a legacy they'd inherited without even knowing it existed. When she finished, Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "So we're heroes, like, actually." Maya laughed through her tears. I don't know about heroes, but we're part of something bigger than ourselves, something that matters. I want to help, Emma said firmly. When this is over, I want to help return the art to people. I want to be part of it. You will be, I promise. 2 weeks after the press conference, the FBI arrested Marcus Hendricks. The charges included extortion, conspiracy to commit fraud, and attempted theft of cultural property. His phone records showed calls to known art thieves, payments to private investigators hired to track Maya, and a paper trail connecting him to the attempted break-in at the mountain property. He was denied bail. The Eastern European voice from the threatening phone call turned out to belong to a man named Viktor Sokolov, wanted by Interpol for art theft in 7 countries. The FBI caught him trying to bribe a security guard at the vault. He was arrested and extradited to Germany to face charges there. One by one, the threats diminished. The people who'd come after Maya found themselves facing federal charges, international warrants, and the full weight of law enforcement agencies who'd been waiting years for a chance to take them down. Maya's press conference hadn't just revealed the collection. It had forced the criminals into the open, made them act rashly, and gotten them caught. 3 weeks after everything began, Maya was finally allowed to go home. She picked up Emma from Robert Chen's daughter's house, held her sister tight for a full 5 minutes, and drove back to their tiny apartment. Everything looked the same. The lumpy couch, the yard sale lamp, the cracked linoleum in the kitchen. But it all felt different. Smaller somehow, like they'd outgrown it in the weeks they'd been gone. We don't have to stay here, Maya said as they unpacked their bags. Emma looked up. What do you mean? Diana says I'm entitled to a finder's fee for some of the pieces that don't have identifiable owners. It's not millions, but it's enough to get us a better place. Enough for you to go to college. Enough for me to actually breathe for the first time in 5 years. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Really? Really? They sat together on the couch that night, eating pizza Diana had sent over, watching TV, just being sisters again. And for the first time since their parents died, Maya felt like maybe, just maybe, they were going to be okay. More than okay. They were going to be free. 6 months had passed since that press conference on the courthouse steps. 6 months since Maya's face had appeared on every news channel in the country. 6 months since a struggling waitress became the guardian of history. The world had changed in those 6 months. And so had Maya. She sat now in a coffee shop in the city, waiting for someone who would help tell Eleanor's story the way it deserved to be told. Not just as a news headline or a viral sensation, but as the human story it was. A story of survival, courage, and love that transcended generations. The journalist's name was Sarah McKinley, a writer for a major magazine who'd spent her career covering cultural heritage and historical preservation. She'd reached out to Diana 3 months ago, asking for an interview. Diana had vetted her thoroughly before giving Maya the green light. Sarah arrived right on time, a woman in her 40s with warm eyes and a recorder in her bag. She sat down across from Maya and smiled gently. "Thank you for agreeing to this," Sarah said. "I know you've been bombarded with interview requests." Maya nodded. "Diana says you're different, that you care about telling the truth, not just getting clicks." "I do, and I think your great-aunt's story deserves more than clickbait." Sarah pulled out her recorder. "Can we start at the beginning? Not your beginning, but hers. Tell me about Rachel Mendel." For the next 3 hours, Maya told Eleanor's story. She'd spent months learning every detail, reading through all the journals, talking to historians who specialized in Nazi-looted art, connecting with distant relatives who remembered David Mendel. She'd pieced together a life that had been deliberately hidden, and now she was finally ready to share it. She told Sarah about Vienna in 1938, about a teenage girl watching her world burn, about a father who loved art more than life itself, who believed beauty could survive even the darkest evil, about a daughter who spent 7 decades keeping that belief alive. Sarah listened without interrupting, tears streaming down her face by the time Maya finished. "She never married?" Sarah asked softly. Maya shook her head. She couldn't risk it. Couldn't risk someone discovering what she was protecting. She chose isolation over companionship, silence over connection. For 76 years, she carried that burden alone. Until me, Maya agreed. Though I don't think she saw it as passing on a burden. I think she saw it as giving me a gift. A chance to do something that mattered. Sarah wiped her eyes. "And have you done something that matters?" Maya thought about the past 6 months, about the families reunited with their heritage, about the museums that had received pieces they'd thought lost forever, about Emma, who was now talking about studying art history in college, about becoming a curator, about dedicating her life to preservation. "I'm trying," Maya said. "Every day, I'm trying." The article came out 2 months later. 8,000 words in a prestigious magazine, with photos of Eleanor at different ages, images of the collection, interviews with the families who'd gotten pieces back. The headline read, "The Woman Who Saved Beauty, How Rachel Mendel Protected History and Changed One Young Woman's Life Forever." It won awards. It was adapted into a podcast. A documentary crew reached out, asking to film the story. Publishers offered book deals. But what mattered most to Maya was the final paragraph Sarah had written. In the end, Eleanor Torres, born Rachel Mendel, didn't just save art. She saved the idea that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. That courage doesn't require armies or wealth, just the quiet determination to protect what matters. And in Maya Torres, she found someone who understood that protecting beauty isn't about ownership. It's about love. Maya kept that article folded in her wallet, reading it whenever doubt crept in, whenever the weight of what she'd inherited felt too heavy. By the time spring arrived, the FBI had completed their cataloging of the collection. 347 pieces total. Paintings, sculptures, jewelry, historical documents, and items of cultural significance spanning from the 15th century to the 1940s. The estimated total value had climbed to $289 million. Agent Shaw had presented Maya with a thick binder containing the fate of each piece. 163 items had been returned to families who could prove ownership. 47 had gone to museums in countries where they'd been stolen from. 81 pieces had been claimed by governments seeking to restore their cultural heritage. That left 56 pieces with no identifiable owners, items whose provenance trails had gone cold, whose families had been completely destroyed. "These are yours to decide," Shaw had told her. "Legally, as the inheritor, you can keep them, sell them, or donate them. It's your choice." Maya had sat with that decision for weeks. The monetary value of those 56 pieces alone was over $37 million. Life-changing money. Money that could set up Emma for life, that could erase every struggle they'd ever faced. But every time Maya thought about selling them, she heard Eleanor's voice in her head. Beauty must survive, even when everything else burns. She made her decision on a Tuesday morning, sitting in Diana's office with Robert Chen and Emma beside her. "I want to create a museum," Maya said, "at the mountain property. We restore the house, build a proper facility, and we display these pieces the way Eleanor would have wanted. Not locked in a vault, but shared with the world. And we make it free. Anyone can come, anyone can see, anyone can learn." Diana smiled. "That's a beautiful idea. But museums are expensive to run. Staff, security, maintenance, insurance. We're talking millions of dollars annually." "Then we fundraise. We apply for grants. We partner with universities." Maya's voice was firm. "Eleanor spent her whole life hiding these pieces to keep them safe. Now they're safe. Now it's time to let people see them." Robert leaned forward. "What about the house itself? The property?" "We preserve it exactly as it was. Eleanor's home becomes part of the museum. We tell her story, show how she lived, help people understand what it meant to dedicate your life to something bigger than yourself." Emma spoke up for the first time. "And we offer scholarships for kids who want to study art or history or preservation. We use Eleanor's legacy to create new legacies." Maya reached over and squeezed her sister's hand. At 17 now, Emma had grown into someone Maya barely recognized. Confident, passionate, purposeful. The scared little girl was gone, replaced by a young woman who understood what it meant to fight for something. "The Eleanor Torres Memorial Museum and Cultural Center," Diana said, writing it down. "I like it." The transformation of the mountain property took 18 months. Maya had never imagined she'd become a project manager, but that's exactly what happened. She coordinated with architects who specialized in historical preservation, with security firms who protected priceless collections, with educators who designed programs for school groups. The town of Red Hollow, which had once whispered about the cursed house on the mountain, now buzzed with excitement. Construction brought jobs. Workers needed places to stay, places to eat. Businesses that had been struggling for years suddenly found themselves thriving. The old diner where Maya used to work got a fresh coat of paint and a new menu. Dennis, her former boss, hired 3 new waitresses to handle the increased traffic. "Never thought I'd see the day," Dennis said when Maya visited one afternoon. "This town was dying. Now look at it." Maya looked around at the bustling street, at the tourists walking with cameras and guidebooks, at the new shops opening in previously vacant buildings. "Eleanor saved more than art," Maya said quietly. "She saved this whole place. She just had to wait for the right time." The museum opened on a cool October morning, exactly 2 years after Maya had first walked into that lawyer's office and learned she'd inherited a worthless house. The ceremony was small, intimate, just the people who mattered. Emma, now a freshman at an art history program on a full scholarship funded by the museum's endowment. Diana, who'd become more than a lawyer, more like family. Robert Chen and his daughter. Agent Shaw from the FBI, Joseph Mendel and his family, who'd flown in from New York to see Rachel's legacy honored. And Sarah McKinley, the journalist who'd told Eleanor's story to the world. They stood together in front of the restored log house, now flanked by a modern wing that housed the gallery spaces. The building had been designed to blend old and new, honoring the past while embracing the future. Maya stepped up to the microphone they'd set up for the occasion. 2 years ago, she began, her voice steady now, confident in a way it never used to be. I was working 2 jobs, barely making rent, wondering how I was going to give my sister the life she deserved. I was surviving, not living. I'd forgotten how to dream. She looked at Emma, who smiled encouragingly. Then I inherited this place, this house that everyone said was worthless. And inside it, I found something worth more than money. I found purpose. I found family I didn't know I had. I found a story that needed to be told. She gestured to the building behind her. My great-aunt, Eleanor Torres, born Rachel Mendel, spent 76 years protecting beauty in a world that seemed determined to destroy it. She sacrificed everything, her name, her family, her chance at a normal life, to make sure that art stolen by the Nazis would survive. That history would survive. That the families who lost everything would have something to hold on to. Maya's voice caught slightly. She paused, collecting herself. This museum is her dream realized. Every piece you'll see inside was saved by her, protected by her, loved by her. And now we're sharing that love with the world. She pulled out a key, the same brass key that had opened the vault door 2 years ago. Eleanor left me this key and a choice. I could have sold everything, taken the money, and disappeared. No one would have blamed me. But she didn't choose me because she thought I'd take the easy path. She chose me because she knew I'd take the right one. She turned to Joseph Mendel, Eleanor's cousin, and held out the key. This belongs to your family, to David Mendel's legacy. Would you do the honors? Joseph, tears streaming down his weathered face, took the key with shaking hands. Together, he and Maya walked to the museum's front door. He slid the key into the lock, turned it, and pushed the door open. Inside, the space was breathtaking. Natural light flooded through carefully designed windows. The walls were lined with the paintings Eleanor had protected, each one displayed with a placard telling its story. Not just the artist and date, but who it had been stolen from, how Eleanor had recovered it, and what it meant. The Vermeer hung in a place of honor, the woman reading her letter by moonlight, glowing as if the light came from within the canvas itself. In a separate wing, they'd recreated Eleanor's living space. Her simple furniture, her books, her journals displayed behind glass. Visitors could walk through and see how she'd lived, understand the sacrifice she'd made. And in the center of it all, a portrait of Eleanor herself, painted from an old photograph. Her sharp eyes stared out at visitors, challenging them, asking them what they were willing to protect, what they were willing to sacrifice for, what they believed in strongly enough to dedicate their life to. The museum was a success beyond anything Maya had imagined. In the first month, they had over 12,000 visitors. By the end of the first year, that number had climbed to 150,000. School groups came from across the country. College students wrote papers about Eleanor's recovery efforts. Survivors of the Holocaust and their descendants made pilgrimages to see pieces that had belonged to their families. The town of Red Hollow transformed completely. New hotels opened, restaurants expanded, an arts district developed downtown with galleries and studios and performance spaces. The population, which had been declining for decades, suddenly reversed course. Young families moved in, attracted by the jobs and the culture and the sense that this place mattered. Maya hired locals first, training them as docents and guides and administrators. Dennis's daughter from the diner became the head of educational programming. Mrs. Chen, who'd watched Emma all those years ago, now led tours for senior groups, and Emma, during her summer breaks from college, worked as a junior curator, learning every aspect of museum operations, preparing for the day when she'd take over. But the real measure of success wasn't in visitor numbers or economic impact. It was in the letters that arrived almost daily. Letters from people who'd seen the collection and felt something shift inside them, who'd learned Eleanor's story and decided to be braver in their own lives, who'd discovered that ordinary people could do extraordinary things if they just had the courage to try. One letter from a teenage girl in California read, "I always thought I was too young, too poor, too insignificant to make a difference. Then I learned about Eleanor and about you. Now I'm starting a project to preserve stories from elderly people in my neighborhood before they're lost. Thank you for showing me that protecting beauty matters, no matter who you are." Maya kept every letter, filed them carefully in albums. On hard days, when the weight of running a museum felt overwhelming, she'd read through them and remember why it mattered. On the museum's second anniversary, something extraordinary happened that reminded Maya why Eleanor's mission had been so important. A family arrived from Germany, 3 generations traveling together. The grandmother, a woman named Ingrid, was 91 years old and had traveled despite her failing health. They'd requested a private viewing before the museum opened, and Maya had agreed, curious about their story. Ingrid moved slowly through the galleries, supported by her daughter and granddaughter, until she stopped in front of a small painting Maya had always loved. It showed a family at a dinner table, warm light from candles illuminating their faces, rendered in the style of the Dutch masters. Ingrid's knees buckled. Her family caught her, helped her to a bench. "That painting," Ingrid whispered in heavily accented English, "hung in our dining room in Berlin. I ate dinner beneath it every night of my childhood. I thought it was destroyed when they took our home in 1941. She was crying now, her aged hands trembling as she pointed at details in the painting. "See there, that chip in the frame? I did that when I was 7, playing with a ball in the house. My father was so angry." She laughed through her tears. "And there, on the table in the painting, that porcelain bowl. We had that same bowl. It was my grandmother's. Everything in our home was taken from us. Everything. But this painting, somehow it survived." Maya knelt beside Ingrid, her own eyes wet. "Would you like to have it back? It belongs to your family." Ingrid shook her head firmly. "No, no, it belongs here, where people can see it, where they can understand what was lost and what was saved. My family sees it now. That's enough. That's everything." She reached out and took Maya's hand. "Your great aunt. She gave us back our history. Not just the objects, but the memory. The proof that we existed, that we mattered, that we had beauty in our lives before it was all taken away." Ingrid squeezed Maya's hand with surprising strength. "Thank you for honoring what she did. Thank you for not selling these pieces to rich collectors who would hide them away again. This is where they belong, where everyone can see them, where they can teach." After Ingrid's family left, Maya sat alone in the gallery for a long time. She thought about all the families like Ingrid's, families who'd lost everything but found fragments of their history preserved in Eleanor's vault. This was why it mattered. This was why Eleanor had sacrificed a normal life. This was why Maya had chosen to create a museum instead of selling the collection. Because some things were worth more than money. Some things needed to be shared, not hoarded. Some things had the power to heal wounds that had been bleeding for generations. 3 years after the museum opened, Maya stood on the porch of Eleanor's house, watching the sun set over the mountains. She was 28 now, no longer the exhausted waitress who'd stumbled into this legacy. She'd found her calling, her purpose, her place in the world. Emma would graduate from college next year, already planning her thesis on recovery efforts for Nazi-looted art. She'd been accepted to graduate programs at 3 prestigious universities. The scared 16-year-old was gone, replaced by a scholar, an advocate, a force for good. Diana still served as the museum's legal counsel, but she'd become more than that. She was Maya's mentor, her friend, the person she called when decisions felt too big to make alone. Robert Chen visited often, bringing his grandchildren to see the collection, telling them stories about the case that had brought him out of retirement. He'd written a book about art crimes, dedicating an entire chapter to Eleanor's story. And the museum continued to grow. They'd added a conservation lab where visitors could watch restorers work on damaged pieces. They'd started a fellowship program for young scholars studying cultural preservation. They'd partnered with universities around the world to research provenance and return additional pieces to rightful owners. But what Maya was proudest of was the scholarship fund. Every year, the museum awarded 10 full scholarships to students from low-income backgrounds who wanted to study art, history, or cultural preservation. Students like Maya had been, kids who thought college was impossible, who'd resigned themselves to struggle. The first scholarship recipient, a girl named Lisa from a town even smaller than Red Hollow, had just graduated with honors. She'd sent Maya a photo of herself in cap and gown, with a note that read, "You changed my life. Now I'm going to change someone else's." That's what legacy meant. Not money or fame or recognition, but the ripple effect of courage spreading outward, touching lives you'd never meet, in ways you'd never fully understand. One evening, as Maya was locking up the museum, she found an elderly woman sitting on a bench in front of the Vermeer. The museum had closed an hour ago, but somehow this woman had been overlooked. "I'm sorry," Maya said gently. "We're closed for the day." The woman turned and Maya saw tears on her weathered face. "I knew her," the woman said softly. "Eleanor, or Rachel, as I knew her then. We were children together in Vienna. We played in the same streets, went to the same school. I was supposed to go to her house for tea the day the soldiers came." Maya sat down beside her, her heart racing. "My family got out earlier," the woman continued. "We fled to England in 1937. I always wondered what happened to Rachel. I thought she'd died. We all thought she'd died." "She survived," Maya said. "She survived and spent her life protecting beauty." The woman reached out and took Maya's hand. Her skin was thin as paper, spotted with age, but her grip was strong. "She was the bravest person I knew, even as a child. Always standing up to bullies, always protecting the smaller kids, always fighting for what was right." The woman smiled through her tears. "I'm not surprised she did this. I'm only surprised she did it alone." "She wasn't alone in the end," Maya said. "She had me, even if I didn't know it until she was gone." They sat together in silence for a while, looking at the Vermeer, at the woman reading her letter by moonlight. Two women from different generations, connected by one person's extraordinary courage. "Thank you," the elderly woman finally said, "for honoring her, for telling her story, for making sure the world knows what she did." "Thank you for remembering her," Maya replied, "for carrying her memory all these years." After the woman left, Maya walked through the empty museum one more time. She did this often after closing when the crowds were gone and the building was quiet. She liked to stand in front of each piece and remember how it had looked in the vault, hidden and protected, waiting for the world to be ready. She stopped in front of Eleanor's portrait, staring into those painted eyes. "I hope I'm doing this right," Maya whispered. "I hope you'd be proud." The portrait, of course, didn't answer, but Maya felt something anyway, a warmth in her chest, a certainty that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the letter from the lawyer, the drive up the mountain, the hidden door in the vault, and the impossible decision of what to do with what she'd found. Every step had been terrifying. Every choice had felt too big for someone like her. But she'd done it anyway. She'd been brave when she didn't feel brave. She'd fought when fighting seemed impossible. She'd protected beauty even when darkness threatened to consume everything. Just like Eleanor. Maya turned off the lights and locked the museum doors. Outside, The mountain air was crisp and clean. Stars spread across the sky like diamonds scattered on velvet. She thought about the waitress she used to be, working double shifts, drowning in exhaustion, convinced that survival was the best she could hope for. That girl felt like a stranger now, a ghost from another life. The woman she'd become was stronger, wiser, purposeful. She'd discovered that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was moving forward despite it. That ordinary people could protect extraordinary things. That one person's determination could echo through generations, changing lives in ways impossible to predict. She pulled out her phone and called Emma. "Hey," Emma answered. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," Maya said. "Everything's perfect. I was just thinking about how far we've come. From our crappy apartment to running a museum. Not bad for a couple of kids with nothing." "We never had nothing," Maya said softly. "We had each other, and we had Eleanor's faith that we could do this." "We did it," Emma said. "We actually did it. We're still doing it every day, and we'll keep doing it as long as it matters." They talked for a while longer, about Emma's classes, about the new exhibit Maya was planning, about their lives that had transformed so completely it sometimes felt like a dream. When they hung up, Maya stood alone in the parking lot, looking up at the museum. Her museum, Eleanor's legacy. A testament to the idea that beauty matters, that culture matters, that protecting what we love is worth any sacrifice. She thought about all the people who'd tried to stop her. Hendrix, with his threats and his money. Sokolov, with his criminal connections. All the voices that had told her to walk away, to take the easy path, to accept that some fights were too big for girls like her. They'd all been wrong. Because in the end, it wasn't about being powerful or wealthy or connected. It was about being stubborn enough to stand your ground, brave enough to speak the truth, determined enough to protect what mattered, even when the cost seemed too high. Eleanor had known that. She'd lived it for 76 years, and now Maya understood it too. Anyone can change the world if they're willing to look past fear and believe that protecting beauty still matters. Maya Torres learned that from a great-aunt she barely knew, in a vault beneath a worthless house, surrounded by treasures that weren't measured in dollars but in lives saved, stories preserved, and beauty that refused to die even in the darkest times. She was just a waitress who inherited a secret. But she became the guardian of a legacy that would outlive them all. Because sometimes the most valuable things we inherit aren't things at all. They're the courage to stand up, the strength to protect what's right, and the stubborn belief that one person can make a difference. Eleanor Torres believed it. Maya Torres proved it. And somewhere, in a vault that's now a museum, in paintings that glow with life, in stories that will never be forgotten, that belief continues to echo. Because true legacy isn't what we leave behind, it's what we inspire others to protect. The end. Up next, 2 more powerful stories are waiting for you. Click to keep discovering with us. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you believe hidden treasures still deserve to be found, protected, and shared with the world.